Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning. My name is Alex Roinishvili Grigorev, and I'm the president of the Council for Inclusive Governance. More about CIG online at cigonline.net. And it's an honor for me to be here and an honor for CIG to be a partner once again at this important event. We have only an hour and a half, and I know already that we will not cover everything that we wanted to cover, but nevertheless, let's take this challenge and see what we can do. There are only two main rules that I have for my participants today. The first rule is please do not interrupt each other, even if you really want to do that. And the second thing is please do not take more than 5 minutes of the time. I have these two little good friends that will be helping me today. And if you go for more than 5 minutes and you'll see me frantically waving the red one, please respect and let someone else to take the floor. If you could do it in 3 minutes, even better. If you do your math, 6 panelists, 5 minutes, half an hour. You want to talk for more than one time. I also want to ask you, the panelists, to have a conversation here, not a collection of speeches. Everyone, every single one person in this room, and I know quite a few of them, they read newspapers. They read what's happening online. They heard you before. Say something new today. Say something new and important. Something that they will carry from this room and will tell their friends and their colleagues, I heard this at the debate at the Belgrade Security Forum. If you follow the Kosovo-Serbian politics and this relationship, you definitely know every single person on this stage, but just in case there is a guest here who is from Mars, some other planet. On my left is Marko Đurić, who is the head of the Office for Kosovo and Metohija in the government of Serbia. Next to him is Arben Gashi, who is a member of parliament representing the Democratic League of Kosovo in opposition today in the parliament of Kosovo. Next to him is Dalibor Jeftić, who is a deputy prime minister of the Kosovo government and also long-serving minister for communities and return. Next to him is Ramadan Ilyazi, who is a former deputy minister of European integration, but now decided to take a break and do something smart and get a PhD. Next to him is Gordana Čomić, who is a long-serving deputy speaker of the Serbian parliament, also representing the opposition. And last but certainly not least, Naim Rashiti, the director of the Balkan Research Group and a good friend, and also one of those who have this access over the people who are trying to help this process of relationship between Kosovo and Serbia, Belgrade and Pristina going. So let us go directly into the conversation. Frankly, you know, we have no time to waste. We have no time to waste here. We have an hour and a half, but I also don't think we have time to waste in general. The global situation, as you know, is getting only worse. The situation inside of countries in this region is not improving either. It's tough. It's improving to a certain degree, but my friends, colleagues, demographers are telling me that the brain drain is so severe, if it's not changed in the next 5 years, it will become irreversible. We all saw the exodus from Kosovo 2 winters ago in the huge numbers of people. The same demographers are telling me that this year alone, more than 50,000 Serbs will leave Serbia. So people are voting, they're making their own decision, but I don't think we could stay aside and sort of see this process going. The villages are depopulating. I'm told there are some towns in this region with population levels at the same level as they were at the end of First World War, not Second, First World War. So I think it's high time to resolve many outstanding problems and concentrate all our energy on something much more existential. One of those problems is the relations between Belgrade and Pristina, between Kosovo and Serbia, 18 years after the war in Kosovo. Imagine if 18 years after the Second World War, in 1963, France and Germany would have been still deciding and discussing the consequences of the war, what happened, instead of, in 1957, signing the Treaty of Rome together with 4 other European countries. 12 years after the Second World War, those two decided that they cannot be happy by defeating the other one, but they could be happy if they worked together, and they could be happy together. Imagine if there was an agreement or a treaty signed by Belgrade and Pristina in 2011. If you do the math, 12 years. What would this relationship have looked like? Imagine what prospects that would open for a new Balkans, just like the Treaty of Rome opened for the new Europe. On the other hand, many people, many smart people are telling me that rushing today in a very quick solution is also a big mistake. They're telling me that some deadlines of 12, 18 months, whatever you're hearing these days, that they're not realistic either. But I also know that another paradigm, when people are saying we could be both unhappy if we resolve this issue, and we will resolve it by staying unhappy altogether, I don't think that works. I think what will work, and let's strive for both being happy. Let's try, instead of win-lose, transform this relationship into win-win. And I think it is possible. And now we go closer to what we want to discuss today. We want to talk about not just normalization. Normalization has been going now for over 6 years. We want to talk about normalcy, normality. What is left? Status quo, which is essentially stopping halfway through the process, not finishing the job done, is not exactly the answer. This would also mean stopping halfway through vis-a-vis the European Union, keeping this frozen situation, or waiting for geopolitics to change in your favor, or work towards signing a comprehensive, legally binding agreement. Let us keep also in mind during this conversation, this is not academic. This discussion is highly practical. There is real suffering of real people behind this issue, before or now. So let's keep in mind that not resolving this will affect real lives of human beings. And as I said, unfortunately, looking at the situation today, I'm not very huge optimist. I see people speaking from both sides of their mouths very often. So I would like to invite my participants to reverse my optimism, but more importantly, not mine, people's pessimism, and help them to see the situation in a more optimistic turn. So in this age of uncertainty, as the organizers have labeled this session, this 7th session of Belgrade Security Forum, can you bring some certainty to us? Marko, Đurić, what is normalcy that you are dreaming about? Don't tell us all the secrets of your craft. You don't have to tell us all the negotiations and all the tough stuff that you go through on a daily basis. But I think the people in this audience and beyond deserve to know where you're taking them. And where is the picture that, or the normalcy that you are striving for? When is that moment when you can stand and say, mission accomplished? Not like George Bush on the aircraft carrier, but when you can say mission accomplished. Where is that moment?
First of all, I want to wish a very warm welcome to all of our guests in Belgrade, and I want to thank the organizers for this exciting debate. I believe that you've just asked the toughest question there is in the relationship between Belgrade and Pristina. I can initially say, and I should probably, that Serbia is fully committed to resolving this huge generation-long, generation-lasting problem in the relations between Belgrade and Pristina through dialogue and peaceful means. And we believe we are firmly committed to the dialogue. We believe that the dialogue has already yielded results in terms of security, stability, and we've recently calculated that during the mandate of this government and the previous government, we had 226 rounds of dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. We've reached 44 agreements in various aspects of life, and although most of them or many of them are not fully implemented, I believe that this has contributed to creating a better atmosphere. And I do believe that the year 2017 is better in terms of relations than 2016 or even 2015. Maybe not as good as, not as positive as 2013 and 2014, but we should already be used to the fact that there are some natural ups and downs in this relationship. Now, going back to your original question, Well, normalcy. I think that it is high time that in determining the solution for the relations between Belgrade and Pristina, we start taking into account what the Serbs and the Albanians actually want. I'm not sure that in the previous years or at some key historic points in which the fate of Kosovo and Metohija, as we say, was determined, we were all equally taking into consideration the wishes of, or even consulting, actually, the Serbs or the Albanians. I'm sure that no one consulted, for example, the Serbs in 1949 when the autonomous region of Kosovo and Metohija was created then in former Yugoslavia. I'm also sure that no one genuinely consulted the population back in 1974. And I'm also certain that no one consulted the population in Kosovo and Metohija back in 1990 when the regime at the time abolished the autonomy. This malpractice continued, I would say, up to this day. No one consulted the people, in 2008 in Kosovo and Metohija, and now we have basically a situation in which we have a territory which we consider as our autonomous province. The majority of the Albanians consider it, and part of the international community, as we know, consider it an independent state, but the population there, actually, according to all opinion polls, is not satisfied with the current state of affairs. The majority of Albanians would probably like much more to be part of some other form of state organization, maybe even Greater Albania. The majority of the Serbs would certainly prefer to remain or to be part of Serbia. And basically, there are very few people who are happy with the situation as we have it now. Probably, political circles, political elites, very narrow political elites, but the general population, no. And I believe that in determining solutions for the future, we also need not to put things under the carpet and wait indefinitely. You yourself mentioned the very difficult socio-economic situation, and it's not a secret that the economy is suffering. Normalcy means better economy, means more jobs, means an unemployment rate lesser than 60% for the youth that we now have in Kosovo and Metohija, and we are ready to work with Pristina to achieve this goal, because this benefits both sides. Better economy in Kosovo and Metohija means better economy in central Serbia. We want to do our best to remove the trading barriers that prevent people from communicating with each other, passage of goods and capital. I think it's not just in the interest of Belgrade and Pristina. I think actually that, for example, I don't know, Slovenian factories in the jurisdiction of Belgrade or Pristina could benefit from such a scheme. US factories, all other people who are looking for employment could benefit from abandoning of a dogmatic approach in economic functionality between the sides. So I think that normalcy primarily means not dealing with status issues necessarily, but creating conditions for better livelihood.
Let me just ask you one question. You said that the Albanians want this, the Serbs in Kosovo want that. I think pretty much I know what Pristina wants. They want recognition of independence. What does Belgrade want?
Well, I'm not sure that, Pristina's wishes end with recognition of independence. You mentioned recognition of independence. I need to mention the fact that a couple of days ago, in the Republic of Albania, they appointed 3 very senior level officials from Kosovo and Metohija to their government. And if we take a look at the history of statements 2 days ago, the representatives of the institutions in Pristina, Hashim Tači, stated that he wants all of the people in Kosovo and Metohija to have passports of the Republic of Albania. This clearly means that Even the highest elected official in Kosovo is not satisfied with his personal citizenship status. And I again return to my thesis that we need to start thinking about what the people in Kosovo and Metohija and beyond actually want when we consider what type of solutions we want to reach.
Thank you. Ramadan Ilyasi, Dani, definitely it's not normal when somebody wakes up in the morning and has to think which driver's license he puts in his pocket, or which SIM card he puts in his phone, or which little sticker he puts on the license plate crossing this and that crossing point. So what does normality, how does that look for you, and how do we get there? 5 minutes.
Thank you, Alex, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and real compliments to the organizers for keeping this topic important in every Belgrade Security Forum. 2 years ago, when I last was here, we were talking about the fate of enlargement and what would happen with enlargement and the growing fatigue, not just with enlargement, but with our region in the EU. So today, we can say that kind of we are surviving this in a sense, Brexit mood, because just last month, President Juncker clearly indicated that the Commission will develop a strategy for Serbia and Montenegro to join by 2025, and this is a very positive step in terms of confirming EU's commitment to the region, and hopefully this approach will be extended to the rest, but it confirms that the region has a future in EU, and I think this is a very positive development that we have seen. Also, just a couple of days ago in Kosovo, the Regional Youth Cooperation Office opened its own branch, so I think there are some positive developments in this regard that we should take note. When it comes to dialogue, there has been an announcement there will be a next phase starting soon, and this phase somehow is being presented as being a final phase of this dialogue. So will it be a final phase of this dialogue to start a new phase? It's not being described, but what is showing is the limits of this ambiguity approach that has characterized the process and has allowed the parties to make important steps forward. So in this context, I would just outline three messages or issues from my end and how I see normality. First is the sustainability of the agreement, of this concluding agreement, if it were. Will this agreement be sustainable, or will it be an agreement that will continue this, what they're saying, kicking the can down the road approach, moving tough issues always ahead? And will this agreement secure a European future for Kosovo as well? This is fundamental. And an agreement that doesn't address the status issue back, I think, from Pristina perspective, is an agreement that is, in terms of sustainability, maybe there are questions there. Second aspect I want to address is transparency, accountability, and responsibility. Transparency, very self-evident, and I think it has become a common knowledge now that the process hasn't been very transparent, and the process can benefit from more information and inclusion of citizens in the process. We have seen initiatives in Serbia with President Vučić on internal dialogue. Similar requests have been made back home by civil society that there should be an internal dialogue as well. In terms of accountability, it's on implementation. There needs to be more focus on implementation. There are very good agreements that have been reached in the process, and somehow we seem to be forgetting why this dialogue has started in the first place, which is to make the life of citizens better and easier in both sides. But there are some symbols of this division that remain, and I think there should be more support for their implementation, like the bridge issue. It's still there. There is agreement how to go for it, but it remains that symbol. And the bridge, it also is a practical symbol for the citizens there to show how this process is very beneficial to them. And on responsibility, this is the joint responsibility that both Serbia and Kosovo have to find a good solution for their own people and for the both people of the region. And the last is the societal reconciliation, and what we talked with Sonia, the social polarization, which is growing in our societies. And we need to take this into account when we're thinking about the solutions and what normality entails. And I think in both sides, there are issues to be taken into account. If you have opposition gathering 250,000 signatures against the association, this clearly maybe sends the wrong message to the Kosovo Serbs. Also, if you see efforts on rehabilitating Milosevic and his ideology here in Belgrade, this also sends the wrong message. So there needs to be an awareness about the repercussion of this polarized discourse that we are seeing, and that would be, in a sense, the normality. Moving to normality is where there is a better discourse in the relation between the two, and there is more will towards implementing these important agreements, and there is an acknowledgement of each other's positions and how important this process is for a common European future. So give certainty to this common European future.
You said that we need support. Frankly, when you do not know anything about Kosovo, about the relationship, if you just come from Mars and you see the High Representative for Common Foreign and Security Policy dealing with a bridge in a little tiny town, really? Serbs and Albanians cannot do this on their own? Do they really need to go to Brussels? Do they really need someone else to come to deal with the stinking bridge? What kind of support do you need?
I meant support, I meant maybe pressure, because I think I think that there is a clear understanding on how to move forward. But the idea is that the bridge has become a symbol of the division, but also a reminder of the unused potential of the dialogue, of this process. It has produced many important agreements, like my ability to come to Belgrade, and many other agreements. You know, there is lack of progress. Marko talked about economy, on the energy cooperation, which can be more focused on that, on implementing some of those aspects in the agreements. But the bridge has become the symbol of the division and the symbol of an unused potential of the dialogue.
What kind of support do you need? What kind of help do you need?
I think I talked about accountability, and I think there needs to be a proper communication with the local leadership about the responsibility in the process and their accountability towards delivering on the commitment they undertook. Okay. I think the support is in this sense political, because European Union has been very good in this sense. They are financing the whole rehabilitation, for example, in the case of the bridge project. But there needs to be a more direct, I would say, communication, accountability.
Very important. 2 minutes for Marko, and then I'm going to go to Dalibor Jeftić.
You know, in former Yugoslavia, we had a nasty habit of politicians to open certain construction sites a couple of times. Initially when the construction begins, then sometime when the construction nears its mid of its construction, and then finally at the end. If I remember well, the High Representative of the EU already opened the bridge this spring. So in that sense, it is encouraging to hear that at such a high level there is such a commitment to this issue. However, I must say that the bridge is far from being the only problem for Serbs and Albanians in Kosovo. And maybe for some of our Albanian colleagues it is a symbol of division, but for most of the Serbs in Kosovo this bridge is a symbol of fear, because during the period of 19 or 18 past years, they have seen more than 900 ethnically motivated attacks across this bridge towards their community, and this is why they are looking at with such anxiety at the opening of this bridge. And of course, the bridge should be in a mutually acceptable way reconstructed, but the real issue here is the fact that 17 years after the end of the war, we have a complete and utter failure in return. And how can we speak about normalcy when in Pristina, the capital of Kosovo and Metohija, we still don't see even the slightest number of the pre-war population of Serbs? Just to remind ourselves, pre-war population of Pristina used to number more than 40,000 Serbs. Well, and now, according to latest analysis of Red Cross activists, by the way, some of whom were arrested for espionage because they were trying to establish what was the state of the Serbian community there. There are just 38 elderly Serbs living in Pristina. And just as the bridge might be frustrating for the Albanians, so is, believe me, for the Serbs frustrating the fact that here in central Serbia we have so many people who are not able to, if not return to their homes, at least claim their homes, because according to OSCE data, we have 80,000 apartments and homes that are still occupied by illegal tenants.
Well, this is a good segue to ask the Minister.
And sorry,
please.
just one more sentence. And I again thank all of our colleagues from Pristina for coming. I know that it is not easy. I just want to say that I regret the fact that we don't have a partner from dialogue, not just as this discussion, but at the moment we don't have an implementation partner in Pristina. We have 44 technical agreements, and they have abolished the Ministry for Dialogue. They have abolished, they don't have an entity in the government in charge for implementing the dialogue. So this means that we are, at the moment, we hope this will change, but at the moment we are left hanging in the air and basically waiting for them to have, you know, mercy and appoint someone who will deal with the piling amount of problems.
Well, I hope they will. I'm not sure they're going to have someone. America doesn't have a Ministry of Culture, but we certainly have culture. So you don't have to have a body to have something going on.
Kosovo is not America.
Dalibor, first of all, I'm really curious to see, from the point of view of Serbs in Kosovo, what normality is. Many complaints in terms of daily lives that I hear are really about normality. It's about travel documents. It's about stickers. It's about license plates. It's about pensions. It's about, this is normality. What's happening is not normal. So from your point of view, how do we fix it? We know what's happening, but how do we get there?
Well, Alex, thank you first. It's very good to be here today, and greetings to all in the room. Of course, when we talk about normality, I rather talk about point of life, not from the political perspective, because what it might be reality for politicians, it doesn't mean that it is reality for the ordinary citizens and the people that just want to have easier life. And the things that you mentioned, of course, are very important for those people. And when we talk about normality, I also always want to use this expression, accepting and knowing reality. And reality is not same, I will say, in every part of Kosovo. People live different lives and have different challenges, depends where they live. And when we talk about Serbian community, definitely those people, Serbs that live in south part of Kosovo, live in different kind of reality. And we have to, we need to take that into consideration when we talk in general what could bring us from normalization to normality. And I always think about those people. I always think about people that live in Klina and Istok, those people that live in the municipalities where Serbs are not majority, because their life is much, much harder. And they, on daily basis, they face many problems that only could fix it if we do less politics and more we have more solutions that will help them to have their life much easier. I was yesterday in Velika Hoća, for example, and we didn't talk about politics with the people there. We talk about wine, we talk about tourism, we talk about economy. This is their interest. And when you talk about normality, they just want to have normal life from the point that they have a chance and opportunity to sell their products. And I was happy to hear that this year was so good for these people in Velika Hoća and Orahovac, because they have people from Albania and Macedonia coming and buying their products. So on the other side, we in one period of time were faced with many problems when we talk about our returnees, and especially in these areas. People has been attacked, their property has been stolen, and all this very much have impact on their lives, on their decisions to remain and stay in Kosovo. And when we talk about some other things, I was so unhappy to hear and to see when Bogdan Mitrovic has been arrested just because he wants to go to spend one day at his house in his Mušotište in Suva Reka. And I had a chance to talk with my colleagues and friends Albanians about this topic, because this is not just a Bogdan Mitrovic case. This is a case that sends a very, very negative message to all people that are thinking about a possible return to their homes. This guy, this gentleman, has been reported by the person who actually occupied his house that he's a war criminal. And Bogdan Mitrovic was part of the working group for the return for the years. He was a member of the working group that consists also representatives of all communities and international communities as well. This has to change. If we want to reach the normality point where we will not talk about these things, we need to eliminate this kind of negative signs, I would say, because this was not just a negative sign, but very, very negative message to all possible returnees. And many of my Albanian friends and colleagues share my thoughts and opinions about this case. Life rather than politics, and just knowing what happened recently here in Assembly of Serbia with one member of the parliament bringing the stone from the Kosovo, I have to say bread rather than stone, because our life is not reality, and even those people that want to talk about lives and they don't know nothing about lives are just make things harder. So responsibility at the first place of each and every person who wants to deal about Kosovo and talk about our lives, and they don't know anything about lives. They've never been in Kosovo, and they don't know how we live with our neighbors.
Well, Dalibor, take one more minute and tell me what will happen to your people if this is not resolved fast, or if it's not resolved soon. What will happen to your people? Nothing? Anything?
Well,
Something.
It happened that in one part of Kosovo we have young people leaving Kosovo, but this is not just one community. I have to say that also young Albanians wants to leave Kosovo because of the general economic situation, of course. We have to solve all these problems. We need to take a step forward in the way how the things could be solved, and property issues, for example. If we don't take that first very important step, that finally we clear all these cases of occupied property, this will be a very, very tough thing for the future, for the normality. How you can have normality if we still have, and I'm not talking only about Serbs, I'm talking about in general. Whoever occupied property needs to be, by the law, punished for that, and needs to free that property and give it back to the owner. Law on the property verification is very bad. And Srpska Lista will work on amendment of this law because it's about human rights. It's about human rights, and you cannot, solve the property issues with law such as the law on the property verification. It's very negative, it's very bad, and we want to work with our partners on fixing this problem immediately.
And another just very quick question before I turn to Arben Gashi. As the Minister for Return, what about the tell us, educate us on the return of the Albanians into north of Mitrovica. What's happening there?
We have been working lately, and we free up 17 apartments in the North Mitrovica, when the 17 Albanian families now having their apartments back. I know this is also a sensitive case, but on another side, we have work on Brđane case, which is also part of North Mitrovica municipality. Also in the same way as we work in Mušutište. And what I did not like in this specific case is that somebody make parallel. If we return one family here, we can return one family there. This is bad way. I mean, we cannot work this way. We should work on the way, let's work together, how we can create conditions for people to return and be their homes, not with blackmailing, not with other approach. I don't accept this kind of talk. I don't accept this kind of cooperation, because for me, you know, if we talk in that way, we have over 200,000 people. They're still out of their homes, and we will never bring and reach the point of return of them back to their homes.
Okay, Arben, you are, of course, currently in the opposition, but I also know that you're one of the top MPs in terms of votes that they got in the last election. There's one thing I don't understand. On one hand, leaders on both sides are saying that they're ready to normalize, they're ready to talk, they're ready to give this and that. There are the internationals that are saying that maybe in 18 months we're going to have milk and honey. But then when you listen to the conversation inside, very often same leaders are saying the same things that we heard for so many years. If the populations, if the societies are not ready for this normalization, never mind normality, can we achieve there? So are the societies ready for the normality or not? That's a question mark at the end.
Thank you for having me here today. It's my first time being in Belgrade. So far I like it.
We'll take you to Beton Hall at the end of the day.
Okay. I think we have to define what's normality and what is normalization. That's the point. Because normality in our environment of doing politics in Serbia and Kosovo is obstructive behavior, the language that divides us, and the behavior that insult each other. And also, both prime ministers or ministers or whomever is discussing and dialoguing in Brussels, they agree that they will have different things when we go out and in front of the media. So this obstructive behavior has to change and has to be a constructive one if we want to have normality. Because in our today terms, normality is hearing from Đurić 12 times saying Kosovo and Metohija. That country has a name, has a constitution, has a population, has a territory, has borders and everything. That's not a language. I don't think Đurić would like if I would say, let's say, Belgrade-Pašaluk or Smederevo Sanjak. I know the person who would be happy with this language, and this person would be pretending to be Sultan, which has been visiting Belgrade lately. This is not language that would bring us together to work for economy, to see how can we improve the life of our citizens, how can we have communication between Kosovo and Serbia without borders, even with Albania. And this language, if we change mind setup on these issues, we have to change mind setup on this issue. And to see the reality, there is a country called Kosovo, Republic of Kosovo. We have to know that. We know that. And in Serbia, we have to understand that. And if we understand that there is no way back, then we have to work, and we have to work with Dalibor. I totally agree with Dalibor. He's saying we have to focus on people to return even in northern Mitrovica or wherever they want to live in Kosovo, all the Serbs, wherever they want, they should have the right to come back and live. But whomever made any crime, either Serbs or Albanians, they have to go to jail. That's it. And after that, we have to make, after we change the mind setup, we have to change the legal setup. Because we have legal setup here in Serbia that says, in Constitution of Serbia, for example, Kosovo is part of Serbia. So we have to change this. And we have to tell to our societies that this is new reality, and to work on economy and then culture and education and whatsoever. So my main point is that we have to be constructive and not obstructive. We have been spoiling for too long. Let's say 18 years, everyone was spoiling. Everyone was spoiling the situation, like international spoiling. And this language of spoiling and obstructive behavior is gaining the space. The political is becoming the political way of behaving. If you see at international level, if you see what's going on with United States and you see what's going on with the language in European Union, and then we see regional spoiling. Everyone is spoiling here. We have Serbs trying to spoil. Albania now has appointed some ministers, and Đurić doesn't like that. I don't like either that, but I don't like even the Kosovan Metohija office in Serbia. So Đurić is saying that Kosovo has no office for Serbia or Ministry of Dialogue. That's not a problem. We can make office, we can call however we want to call, and that's not going to help. The point is, how can we implement these agreements, and how can we have a better future like two neighboring countries with developed economies, with a lot of things to share. We have a lot to share because we have a common past. We have common past in communist regime, we have common past in during Ottoman Empire, and we have a common past fighting each other, killing each other.
What unites us today?
I think what should unite us today and every day is to be more constructive and to solve these problems and to make better life for people in Kosovo and Serbia. And this is why I came here, because it's my first time in Serbia. I never have been in Serbia. So I came because I wanted to show here we need a change. We have to change. We have to change this mind setup, we have to change this language setup, and we have to change this legal setup in order to have a prosperity in all the fields, economy, culture, because we have a lot of things in common, even in culture, in education. Our economies has been connected for a long time. We cannot separate. And if you go in the border, let's say yesterday coming here, you could see lines of trucks and cars waiting on the line to cross the border with Serbia. And
I think I understood when you were explaining how Serbia could be constructive. I got your idea. I think everyone got too. How can Kosovo be more constructive? What would be the first constructive step that Kosovo can make?
I think we need also to have more constructive language. We have to change also the mind setup that all the Serbs are our enemies. We have to change that. We have to work more with local Serbs like Dalibor and others, because there are a lot of, most of them are brilliant people. We need to relax our relations, and then things will develop. We have been for this 18 years forced by external driving forces to dialogue. We didn't want dialogue, Serbia either. So we didn't want that. We don't want, even today, like official policies in Serbia and in Kosovo, we don't want. We just want to stay like that. Maybe one day, by obstructive behavior and by leaving some room in Kosovo, we can change borders and we can do certain things. But that's not going to happen.
Thank you. Let me give Marko 1 minute. What can Serbia do constructively?
Just a brief comment.
I'm sure you want to get a comment, make it really, really brief, because I know what you're going to say. Tell us something new. Tell us something new. And I want to ask the panelists again, tell us something new that we don't know.
My friend Arben, please don't be offended when we say Metohija. Metohija is for us geographical term depicting a region called from the Greek origin of word metochos, which means monastery property, with the historic population of ethnic Serbs. It's not intended to offend anyone. And also, I want to tell
That
you,
country has an official name.
please feel free to say whatever you like in Belgrade. Please feel to say Belgrade, Sandžak, Smederevo, Sandžak, whatever you prefer.
I would not
Let's say something new.
Because you're really invited to openly state your opinion. Unlike this, unfortunately, I cannot do something like that in Pristina
You are welcome.
because I've been
I
prevented
will
for
escort you.
18 times in the past 6 months to go there. However, what I want to say is that you made an excellent point asking the question, what is it actually, not just normalcy, but are there conditions in both the Serbian and Albanian people for greater normalization? Societies, yes. I think that there are conditions for greater level of normalcy, for a more intensive dialogue. I think we should not neglect, though, the anxieties, because if we analyze, if we look at the results of, for example, the elections we had in Kosovo and Metohija this June, again, the majority of the people there voted for leaders who led them in their armed struggle. The majority of the people voted for military commanders of the former KLA. And this shows you that there is a great extent of anxiety, a high degree of nationalism still present, despite the fact that the international community has invested so heavily in the civil society, in integration, in all sorts of normalization. I believe that this means that we should carry on with the dialogue even more intensively, but that in this dialogue we should take into consideration all of the anxieties and fears that both Albanians and Serbs have, and not put things under the carpet in order to portray a better picture of the situation. The situation is not good at all. And though you asked us to speak optimistically, we need to be a realist. We need to state that the situation on the ground is very sensitive and that it depends on us to be responsible. It depends on us not to offend each other. It depends on us to lead the nations to reconciliation instead to conflict. And this is why I believe that President Vučić's invitation for internal dialogue here in Serbia will actually gather and rally our society on the idea that we need to resolve issues through dialogue, that we need to resolve issues in a peaceful way, and that we need to find a lasting solution for relation between Serbs and Albanians, not just in Kosovo and Metohija and other parts of Serbia, but throughout this region.
Actually, now you mentioned the internal dialogue. What do you want to see at the end? What's the product? What are you looking for in the dialogue? What should happen in the end?
You know, our dear colleagues from Pristina, they look at our political scene, they analyze the situation in Serbia on a daily basis. Generally, in the society, there is much more engagement on the issue of Kosovo and Metohija. Here, this is a very important issue, but it is one of the issues. We also have the economic situation, which is very important. We have European integrations, and this is why, through internal dialogue, we can create greater social engagement to deal with this problem. We can actually use the knowledge that the universities have, the young generation, the non-governmental organizations. We can use the strength of the entire society to try to find a way out of a tunnel that has been lasting not just in the period since 1990 until this day, but I would say that has been extended for generations. And I believe that we need, as a society, to work together to create a vision. Our friends from the Albanian side, they, from the days of Prisoner League, from 1878 and even before that, they have been striving to achieve a certain goal. They've had their lobbies in New York, in Germany, in other important capitals of the world generations ago. We need, as a society, to engage more intensively in this problem in order to find a solution that would be beyond transparency. We don't need, it's not enough today to say Kosovo and Metohija is Serbia, which is extremely popular, and it corresponds with my opinion as well, but it is not enough to say that.
So did I
We
hear
need to, as a society, have a grown-up discussion on what the state of affairs on the ground really is, what we can realistically achieve in our relation with Pristina, and how to achieve it with what means.
So I ask you, what will be the end result of the dialogue? Did I hear correctly? You said we need vision?
We need to jointly work on a vision.
So Belgrade doesn't have a vision of what it needs to achieve?
Oh, believe me, Belgrade has a vision. But what we need to do is we need this not to be a vision of a single group of politicians. It doesn't need to be a vision of a single administration. It has to be a vision of the entire society. Only then will this vision have strength to yield a result that would mean reconciliation, reaffirmation of our interest, and a situation in which we can say that not either the Serbs or Albanians will be ultimate and absolute losers. We need to have, and in this respect, you're 100% right. We cannot afford anything else but to have both Serbs and Albanians as winners. We cannot leave nations of 6 or 7 million people and 8 million people, respectively, in the Balkans frustrated. We cannot simply do that for the sake of our future.
And that's what I want, thank you, from the panelists to actually show me how we can be winners. So far, this sort of creeping through the conversation, but I don't see it front and center. Arben, they have a dialogue internally. Do you need a dialogue internally in Kosovo among the Albanians? Do you need a dialogue on this or not?
I think in most of the things in Kosovo, we agree, although we have that kind of language which sometimes is
Well, you don't agree. You were asked to join the unity team. You didn't join the unity team, so I don't think you agree on that.
It doesn't mean that we do not support the dialogue. The fact that we did not join the unity team doesn't mean that. And what would I see as a good progress? It would be if I would see Kosovo Serbs acting as independent from Serbian government. That's a good step, and not coming here and asking for everything what they should do in Kosovo. And this makes some steps, but I insist that we have to change the language setup and mind setup on these issues. Language is destroying. You cannot go and make an agreement which you are aware that you gave something, both parts, and going out and speaking to media saying, we won, Thaci is saying won, Vučić is saying I won. Who won? No one won. Because those agreements mostly are not respected.
Okay.
Because different point of view, different approach, and also European Union is facilitating this kind of language. Now is the time that we should be sharp on this and saying we are working toward the solution, which is the end of the negotiations, and that's it. Not having two interpretations for same subject.
Let me turn to Gordana Čomić and Naim Rashiti, and then come back to Dalibor. I have a very difficult question for Naim, and probably will be a little bit more time. But for Gordana, I want to ask you, the internal dialogue. First of all, your opinion, you're in the opposition. Second, is the Serbian society in Serbia, is it ready for this process of win-win?
Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty is one of the fundamental principles in physics. And basically it says, if you want to know everything about a particle, must be most certain about the particle, the more accurate you measure the mass of the particle, the less accurate you can get the velocity or the momentum of the particle. And that goes for politics too. The more broader picture you look, the more accurate you can see in details. So what would be the broader picture? In 2017, there is a name, a headline of internal dialogue. And it's just a name, a headline. If you look at it as a broader picture, that's good. Embassy says, oh, they will have a dialogue. And media says, oh, we will have a dialogue. And everybody says, oh, we will go everything from the beginning. No, we won't. So the broader picture of having internal dialogue means that if you can look at it, you can see that internal dialogue should be in institutions. Because we have agreed on what should be implementing and happening in Kosovo and Serbia in years to come. We have agreements from 2009, 2010, 2011, 2013, 2015, but a lot of us think that those agreements are just for fun. That's a phase of mocking of rule of law. It's not kind of, in Serbia only, it's European Union as well and all over the planet. That's uncertainty, that's kitsch of mocking rule of law. So the less we mock the rule of law, the more implementation there will be. The less we make fun of internal dialogue, the more real valuable things will be in the field, in the cities and the municipalities in Kosovo and Serbia. The less you just talk about process of dialogue, the more true dialogue will be in the field. What Serbian society thinks about that? I think more or less the same that society in Kosovo. They think that there is only unfairness and injustice, and they're probably right. The interpretation of unfairness and injustice here and there are different. Here, it's them who are unfair and injustice, and all the world is in favor of them, and there, it's us. And everybody's Europe now is so much appreciate with Serbia, etc., etc. So that's also something what I think can be debated within the institutions. Basically, you have Chapter 35 that we agreed upon to start negotiations with the European Union. You have agreements, technical one or whatever, and you have someone paid from the budgets here and there to implement what is written. So if you look at it, looks simple, but more simple it looks, more complicated it starts to be when you want to have implementation of everything what was agreed. There is a kind of a misunderstanding, I would say, within societies here and there, and that is that there will be a kind of a miracle from somewhere, something, someone will come, and all the job that is on the burden, as a burden of politicians, but also everybody of us living as a generational things, will be resolved by some miracle. It won't. And I have a kind of a proposal that might help implementation. The first one, the less women you have represented and in decision-making process, the longer the conflict status will last. The more women you have, that will be the shorter time spent in the field. The second one is that we measure, are we ready to really go to normality under Heisenberg principle of uncertainty, which is quite normal for Mother Nature. The second measure is pick 4 families, Serbs and Albanians from Kosovo, and measure on their quality of life. How does it work with implementation of the technical agreements, plates, diplomas, missing persons, telecommunications, energy, everything what we together, when we were in Brussels, says, yes, we will implement it. But when we go home, then we say to our media and our internal publics, no, just for fun. We have to, because of those Europeans and Americans especially. That's immature, but it's also, I think, inevitable to have it as a phase. And finally, as a broader picture, I think that we don't miss the awareness of reality in societies. We even don't miss the readiness of the government and opposition to be involved in the dialogue. We miss strong institutions, but that's totally another different story. What we really, I think, miss is to cope with the fact that there is no one else but us to do the job. We can do it, or we can delay. That's the choice. And we also miss self-respect for the results already achieved. Just 7 years ago, which is quite a short period of time, it was unthinkable that there would be Albanian politicians from Kosovo in dialogue publicly, whatever it may be, Belgrade Security Forum, which I admire, or wherever else. Now it's doable. It was unthinkable 18 years ago that Albanians from Kosovo and Serbs from Kosovo and Serbs from Serbia will talk ever again, but it is happening. I think that we should pay credit to ourselves and the friends who helped, European Union included, because I think that Brussels dialogue of normalization towards normality is one of the few successes of the European foreign policies. And I think that we together can give credit us for that and then move forward with more women here and everywhere.
Thank you, Gordana. Especially thank you for reminding of the obligation of Serbia that signed with the European Union. At the end of framework for Chapter 35, it says that in the end, there is a comprehensive normalization. In the end, there is an agreement, I guess. I want to ask Marko, because I'm sure you think day and night. I know you think a lot about these things. How does it look like? How does that look like? That end, that Gordana says an obligation of Serbia in the end to do that. There's no choice. You have no choice, basically.
Well, I will say something that may be unpopular for a part of the audience, but I see that there is an unbalance in the approach towards the implementation of the Brussels Agreement, sometimes even from the part of the international community. Because if you look at the conditions that Serbia has for its enlargement, that have been all put in a number of chapters, you have a specific chapter just for following the implementation of the dialogue. This is chapter 35. And all other chapters depend on the way we conduct ourselves towards the dialogue. On the other side, when it comes to Pristina's relation with the EU, for example, for visa liberalization, they have no condition connected to the dialogue. They don't have a condition, for example, to implement the agreement on the community of Serbian municipalities. They only have condition regarding demarcation, which is beneficial for their position regarding the status. They have also a condition fight against corruption, which is normal and beneficial, but they don't have conditions connected to the implementation of Brussels Agreement. And I see a very visible and clear imbalance here.
Answer my question. How does the comprehensive normalization agreement looks like? What should be inside of there? What issues cannot be avoided in that kind of agreement?
I believe that this is something that we need to define together. It is not something that can come from the outside. It cannot be imposed. It should be done taking into consideration what the people actually feel, how they believe the relation should be organized and ordered, if we want to make it work. If we want just to present yet another piece of paper, 45th piece of paper, which will have maybe greater significance, and to do things formally, then fine. But I don't think that it will work in the sense of bringing us the very much necessary relieving of pressure that we both have at the moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gordana, as well. Naim, you heard everything. I don't know if you heard anything new. I did hear some things new, but you also heard this week from Brussels that they want to open the new phase. The new phase will be quick and successful, and maybe next year we're going to have something very important happening there. I'm not very optimistic. You know, I live where someone came into the office and promised so many things in the first 100 days and then says it's complicated. I think this is also complicated. Are you optimistic?
I don't know if it works. I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm not in the short term optimistic. but I'm optimistic a bit of longer term. But also I'm optimistic from that next 3-4 years, the normalization will be achieved. Otherwise, will never happen for a very long time. So it's an opportunity, a delicate opportunity, window of opportunity that we have to seize. But thanks to Sonia's and the European movement for doing this and making us. But all these people of whom I know a lot are really interested in seeing this process moving forward. And so many of these people have been working on this. But now, in listening all this, we are analyzing and we are not spelling out the comprehensive agreement. Which suppose if Serbia gets the invitation or the prospects to join the EU 2025, which means the Kosovo needs to be resolved 21-22 fully. This is not, the new process is not to jump into another stage. Because kind of we sell it, we move from technical to political and now we're jumping into something. It's not something, it has to be really something. And that something, including EU, Pristina, and Belgrade have to cautiously work on this. I was in Brussels yesterday, and I learned again, it just confirmed that 3 people of each side are working on building the package. You're not going to make it. The authority of President Vučić, the authority of government in Pristina and government in Serbia is undermined by the failure to deliver on normalization relations and failure to advance it. Both governments had promised much, and very few people in Serbia and Kosovo believe it. If I sit in civil society here, Marko, you would confuse me with this vision of consulting the nation. The nation, for consulting the nation, the vision, without offering the light of the tunnel, which direction goes the tunnel, you'll confuse, or probably you'll try to put the blame on others. Same it applies for Kosovo, so we're not talking about only one government. The vision is clear. Do the Serbs want to join the EU? And if so, it's a comprehensive agreement that has to be mutually accepted. Yes, we understand the limits, like recognition of formal recognition, but within that, what makes Kosovo to accept, short of formal full recognition? Vice versa, Pristina has to agree to to comprehensive agreement, and if not full recognition from Serbia, what Kosovo satisfies? What is minus that? What is short of that? One step short of that. Second thing is, so Serbia, for Serbs, if it's EU perspective, EU integration 2025, then the conditions are clear. The consultations drives you on this direction, which is light of the tunnel, comprehensive agreement, satisfies both countries. The Kosovo and Serbia, it will be very difficult to sell a dialogue between Serbs and Albanians in the region. Then you open a different box that personally I don't have a consolidated opinion, but then it's a danger. Second thing is what Albanians from Kosovo want. They want they want recognition and they want to move toward the EU. What Serbs want in Kosovo is sustainable future. They've been under constant pressure or revision of their rights, or revision of their opportunities, or revision of borders, mastered by Belgrade and pressured by Pristina. They want to be settled. Whatever the status is, they want to be settled and settled to work. But Kosovo Serbs are told every day, every night, that this new thing will happen, that this new thing will happen. And they want to be told, this has happened for you, this is going to stay with you. That's, now, after 6 years of constant negotiations, nitty-gritty Out of 200-something negotiations, there were probably 15, 20 on the customs fund, on this little custom fund of 10 million euros that just goes anyway to the people, the money. Now we suddenly have come, the leaders have decided to build something quickly for next year, okay? You don't have the backing up of people behind Pristina and in Serbia because they don't trust you. You've got to bring them on board and talk more clearly. Big vision about what Serbia wants, because nations have not been consulted. You'll fail it. Everybody will fail. Kosovars, if they do, they will fail it too. It has to be a multi-track. Everybody wants to help this time. Despite disagreements, despite low trust, everybody wants to help. The multi-track first at Brussels, there should be heavily, clearly, a master process together with the Germans and Americans. At society above, the Hashim Thaci and Alexander Vučić have to earn the mandate, have to earn from the societal support of this, and political support have to earn the mandate to engage the dialogue. And third, this multi-track that you have lots of civil society, lots of policy level expertise, that to build a comprehensive package. It will not be completed next year, but can really start constructing the comprehensive package that in the next few years can finalize into a comprehensive agreement. If Kosovo and Serbia does not do it now, I'm afraid they will not be doing for very, very long time. And now can't be, I don't think it will be next year, but I think can be next 2-3 years.
Very short, two questions. One question is, if we're in this process and something changes in Pristina, the self-determination movement comes to power, how does that affect the process? Possible?
Well, the political changes in Serbia and Kosovo have affected the process. Elections, local elections have affected. Certainly, the Vedvendosjev movement will bring, coming to power, will make a pause to the dialogue, will bring a pause to the dialogue. But if we construct the notion of the dialogue, start to construct the comprehensive agreement inside Kosovo at policy level, in the parliaments of Kosovo and Serbia, then, and societies, then will limit deviations by whoever comes to the power. You never know when will happen elections in Serbia and Kosovo. And actually, President Vučić and Thaci have managed to master this process around their political agendas and elections, which was not very helpful. They probably will not be able to do it anymore.
And what will be the American role?
It's hard to see because everybody asks what will be the American role in the process implementations. Making the comprehensive agreement, reconstructing slightly the process of dialogue in Brussels. It will be very difficult to continue the dialogue on a comprehensive agreement in the Mogherini's office in the evenings, and very few people. It has to be on blocks, dialogue on blocks, similar to Vienna, 1 week of negotiations on building one topic or two topics, the other week on something that where Kosovo and Serbia will see a robust role of German government and U.S. government into this process in helping Mogherini. Of course, she will remain in charge. This also will sound more convincing to the nations because, you know, this trio, Mogherini, Vučić, and Thaci, has sometimes not very frank connotations in the circle. That's a reality, not for me. That's what I hear. So it will improve the image. It will enhance the image of the process.
Marko, please.
Yes, I have just two very quick comments. One is that when it comes to customs and borders that you mentioned, I want to say on the record, we don't need any customs. We are actually in favor of creating a single customs area. We want to abolish as much as possible all of the controls, checks, and everything that is stopping the free flow of goods, capital, and people across what we consider to be administrative lines. So we don't want to see anything in an ideal world, which you asked at one point what would be ideal. In an ideal world, we wouldn't want to see any kind of obstacle preventing citizens and businesses to circulate normally. This is one point. I wanted not to omit something that I believe that is very important and I think quite positive, and that is the fact that I believe that this new government that has recently been appointed, at least according to what we get from people from Srpska list, from people who are participating, has started in a more optimistic tone when it comes to the relation between the Serb and Albanian representatives. And what I hear, and I apologize in advance to Dalibor for maybe saying this myself, but what I hear from our Serb colleagues in the government there is that this relation is now working better than it used to work a couple of months ago. And this is for us a very positive
This is something
thing.
good and something new. One quick question, Naim, I forgot because it's something also fundamental. Of course, Serbia has a vision, and the vision is called the European Union. Kosovo has that vision as well. And we know Serbia is progressing. The whole thing started with the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, especially the new willingness here at that time because of that vision. Does Kosovo has a European perspective without five countries recognized? Maybe not to you. Maybe the question is actually to Dani Iljazi because he used to be the Deputy Minister for European Integration.
Just briefly, I mean, this comprehensive agreement will not resolve the issues between Kosovo and Serbia. Will not bring the full peace. Will create solid conditions for the both to move on, to respect each other's territorial integrity, jurisdiction, law, and international representation. That's what it aims to be. And we have to spell it out. Marko's role would be to spell it out. Enver Hoxha's role in Kosovo and others, it will be to spell it out. We may not get the full recognition, but we want to get this. And this mutually acceptable agreement, comprehensive agreement, it has Serbia, Kosovo has to agree. Serbia and Kosovo have to agree. Once Kosovo agrees on this and removes the barriers, I think the the non-recognizers largely will recognize Kosovo, and they will limit largely the barriers of European perspective for Kosovo, which also should be in the interest of Serbia.
Dani, very quickly, 2 minutes.
European integration has been the fundamental force of transformation of the region. And I just think not using this process to address the fundamental problems of the region would be a missed opportunity. We recently started together with you and Sonia this little exercise of Kosovo Serbia 2030. And in terms of answering that question of normality, it is very good that there is a clear European perspective for Serbia and Montenegro. It sends the message for enlargement policy in general. But let's imagine then 2025, where you have Serbia as a member of the EU without recognizing Kosovo, which I don't think will solve the problem with the 5 non-recognizers.
Does Kosovo have a European perspective?
That's where I'm trying to come. So if the comprehensive agreement is not some kind of a divorce agreement for Serbia with Kosovo, in a sense, where there is the status issue addressed, I do not see that the 5 member states of the EU will change their position. And if the 5 member states of the EU do not change the position, it is clear that Kosovo doesn't have a European perspective, a clear European perspective. So and this brings me to that first point. The agreement, the solution has to be sustainable. It has to secure European future for Kosovo as well. So without addressing the status, and this seems to be the approach that anything but recognition, there seems to be some ideas of addressing recognition in potential accession treaty. But is that really sustainable solution? And EU has already said they don't want another Cyprus. So that is the fundamental concern. 2025, Kosovo remains only with SAA implementation, potentially visa liberalization, and this is an important point to raise. We have still in Kosovo a situation of isolation, and this has been for years. And it helps in that social polarization we discussed aspect. So,
Thank you. Dalibor, Naim, when he was talking, he said, in this comprehensive agreement should be this, 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 and this. I took the liberty of quickly getting some of this, this, this. For example, Kosovo Pension Fund. It is this. Properties, especially private properties, it is this. Cultural heritage, it is this. Freedom of travel, it is this. Recognizing each other's legal jurisdictions. If you marry in one place, doesn't mean you're married in the other place. It is this. Working in common security. We heard yesterday that Kosovo apparently could be a security threat to Serbia. So what, from your perspective, what is the other this that has to be in that agreement?
First, let me say, when I was younger, I learned from my very first boss one important thing, that is worry about things you can control. So if we all do our job, I think all this and that will have less problems here. The main problem here is Balkan, that you have people always dealing other people's job, not worry about their own job. I said that the most important thing when we talk about Kosovo and general problem in Kosovo and relations between people, it's understanding of life. And many times I end up hearing some people that, like I earlier said, never been in Kosovo, talking about our lives. This is other problem. So there is a people that wants to do something about lives and that actually don't know how we live. They don't know who are our first neighbors. They don't know how we are living without first neighbors. And I always speak same, no matter Belgrade or Pristina, I'll always say the same. And we, at this moment, need to move forward of many things. And my dear friend, Mr. Gashi, earlier mentioned about if somebody committed war crime needs to be punished. Yes, I agree. But war criminals are not showing up just if somebody wake up in the morning and say, okay, I will point finger at this guy, I will tell him he's a war criminal. Because Bogdan Mitrovic is not war criminal. Because he has been coming to Mušutište and work with his neighbors on how we can do a return. And we do all the checks with EOLEX and other institutions before we did all these processes. And we have to stop with these secret indictments because that doesn't help. That doesn't help in building a trust. And trust is the key word here. If we want to move forward, we need to build a trust.
Thank you. Take a few questions from the audience. I know we have only 5-10 minutes. Valdet Sadiku. Do we have a mic here? Mic is coming very fast to you. And then, do I have any more questions after him? Yes.
Very briefly, just make maybe 2 comments. It's regarding the aspirations, also called aspirations of Kosovo population. Presidents of Kosovo idea or statement to have passports, Albanian passports for Kosovo citizens, I don't think it should be so much politicized because we don't see, for example, the fact that Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina get passports in Serbia. We don't see that as an attempt of unification, not at all. Or previously, in the past, Serbs from Croatia. It is, again, a practical tool to avoid an unpleasant situation. And again, for the unification and appointment of the, not 3, 4 deputy ministers in the government of Albania. Well, we have also a deputy prime minister in Serbia who is very proud of his origin from Prizren. We do not have at all aspirations for unification with Serbia as well. I don't know if somebody from Swiss embassy is here, but the fact that there are 5 or 6 football players in national team, trust me, it's not an argument that we want to unify with Switzerland.
So you don't
Thanks a lot.
You didn't give us a question, you gave us 2 answers. Sanja Soverlic, please, you have a question.
Sanja Soverlic, journalist from North Kosovo. According to the media and civil society research, many of agreements are related to North Kosovo, but people lives there are excluded from this process and Brussels dialogue. But on the other hand, government from Belgrade is supporting Srpska lista, and it seems like Srpska lista is only one partner for government from Belgrade among the Serbs. And related with that, I have 2 questions. Does government from Belgrade see some other actors as a partners among the Serbs, for example, from media, civil society? And the other one is what will happen if some other party win during local elections?
Okay, anybody else? We'll take 1 or 2 more. Do I see anyone? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Nauclear, and I put a question yesterday and was promised to have an answer in this panel.
Then we really have to answer your question.
Yes. The question was in this panel with women initiatives. There has been a lot of women initiatives in this region, and I come from Finland, and we have been involved in this for a long time. And there is a new initiative that was presented yesterday. There are policies, etc., and women empowerment. We know all this. So, no one has mentioned this. Is this not interesting? Is it a non-issue? We know from statistics that for a lasting peace agreement, you need the involvement of women. It will give totally another picture, and it is not only Gordana who can answer the question. I think there are some others who could also.
Thank you. Thank you. I think actually Gordana mentioned this in her remarks, and I don't want her to answer because she already said what she thinks about it. I'm going to ask the men about this. But first, the question comes to you, I think, what Sanja Soverlic asked.
I will, if you allow, first answer the second question. I must admit, I must admit that I haven't been dealing myself sufficiently with this topic.
But you're dealing with 3 women at home.
Yes. Although I have noticed the fact in analyzing demographers' data that more women are actually leaving Kosovo and Metohija than men. And in general, for example, Serb population in Kosovo and Metohija, the median age of women is almost 4 years older than men, which was a shock for me. And it was kind of a signal that we need in a systematic and organized way to start addressing this issue, and I want to thank you for this question. As for Srpska list...
let me just also, because she said also women have to be involved in resolving the issue. So how do you involve women in the process? Not just Mogherini, but also how do you involve women in the process?
We had Edita.
And they had Edita Tahiri, so you had at least one woman there.
She did a good job.
So far, I think Edita, for the Albanian side, did a good job, and it's not something that should be a secret. Although this doesn't necessarily mean that what she did was always constructive for the process and for the normalization itself.
Side one woman negotiating.
Now I want to answer your question. This issue has mostly been left to the non-governmental sector, and there were a couple of initiatives, for example, for economic empowerment of women. There were a couple of companies that were established, multi-ethnic companies for Serb and Albanian women to cooperate, but I think that there could be more to be done. There is more to be done on this issue. I want to answer the question on Srpska list. Yes, I believe that the circumstances for Serbs' political activity in Kosovo and Metohija are very specific. And I believe that Serbs can achieve higher level of collective political rights only if they act in a unified way. There are numerous historic precedents of populations in similar situations across the world, and comparative analysis shows that where populations have been politically fragmented and divided, they have failed to obtain a greater level of collective political rights. Saying this, I want to state that Serbs are of course welcome, and they do vote in elections for Central Serbia, and there they choose between various political options. Here in Kosovo and Metohija, I believe, this is my personal belief, that it is a matter of their survival, of their livelihood, to gather, rally, and unite themselves in order to be jointly represented in front of the institutions in which generally they form a minority. And I believe that it is necessary also to maintain close and constant cooperation with the institutions in Belgrade for us to be able to provide political, logistical, economic support, all sorts of support you like. I also believe that Srpska list should be as inclusive as possible. It should include, and to a great extent it does, but it should more so in the future, include all of the relevant political actors in Kosovo and Metohija.
Arben, women in resolving Kosovo-Serbia dispute.
We have had two women
And greater
directly
engagement on
included on these
societal level
issues,
as
like
well.
Edita Tahiri and President Yahyaga, which has had a good job. But I think I agree with you. We have to have more, and because we had a lot of men included on these issues, and Đurić said that men live 4 years less in Kosovo because of wars, not something else. And that's why we need to be more inclusive, to see all the parts of society to be inclusive. But I wanted to add something on Lista Serba issue, Lista Srpska. I have been in parliaments for almost 3 mandates now. I could see how the behavior in Kosovo parliament of Serb MPs changed. Like from being cooperative, they just got isolated. They started to not communicate, and they just excluded themselves from decision-making parliaments, in parliamentary committees, bodies, working bodies, etc. Because of the fear they feel from Belgrade. I think this is a problem, big problem. They have to feel free to represent Kosovo Serbs, not to be there as a representatives of Serbian government. This is a big difference. They have to be representatives of Kosovo Serbs. And we know that in Kosovo there are different, if we see, let's say, Serb community in Kosovo, they live in different parts, there is different background, there is a different education, and they cannot be all thinking same, have one list and one political party and nothing else. This cannot happen, because they have to have the freedom of expression and the freedom of participation and thinking differently from Serbian government.
During the period in which the autonomy of Kosovo was abolished from 1990 until 1999, our governments at the time made a huge mistake to look for favorites among Kosovo Albanian politicians, to seek Albanian politicians who would be exclusively loyal to them, who would follow and see through their policies. This was a mistake. My plea is for the Albanian political elites not to replicate and repeat the mistakes we made. So we need genuine Serb political representatives. Genuine Serb political representatives naturally want to cooperate also with Belgrade. And I don't see that this should be something that should raise eyebrows or hair in the representatives of Albanian political elites, as I believe that if we are responsible, this could be to the benefit of both sides. What we do not need is non-genuine representation and, so to say, loyal or honest.
Somehow we can agree on this issue.
We have to, I'm being signaled that we are 10 minutes late. but I want to give Gordana the last, with apologies to everyone else on the panel, the last word. Did you hear the answers that you wanted to hear to the question that was asked?
No. But I want to share with you one ugly certainty that I regret of. And that is that dialogue between Serbs and Albanians is taken for granted if it's conducted by Europeans and Americans. It means that we don't think that on our own we can imagine a solution. It will be imposed, offered, and everything what is following what is offer made by mighties and whoever knows that we can't do it alone is something what we will debate on. That is my regret, but that is certainty, because if we were left alone, we will kill each other. That's stupid, but would not be for the first time. So my plea and my fight is, paradoxically, to decrease the certainty that Serbs and Albanians don't have a clue how the life of Serbs and Albanians, Serbia and Kosovo, should look like in the next 5 years. But there are Europeans and Americans, smart guys, who knows that better. I think that we could put a little uncertainty in that sentence. That is, except for, thank you, you know what women want. It's a nice thing to hear. But let them say what they want.
My last point is, next time, this time, what we will report and we discuss on the normalization process. What Marko or Ben and everybody else and who else can come here will talk. That's important. Talking, consultations, vision, continuation, where it happens, the setup, we have to report progress next time.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank especially those participants, those panelists who came from Kosovo. There are 4 of them here, and you traveled. I would like to thank, of course, the one who traveled from Novi Sad as well, and the one who had just to travel a couple of blocks. I would like to thank the audience. You were fantastic and serious, but more importantly, you were serious on the subject. Sonia, time to work on BSF number 8, because as you can see, we don't have enough time to discuss these things. Thank you.